All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Planly webinar today. Why do most BEPs fail, part 2? So today, Ahmed will be going through this quite thoroughly with you guys. He is one of our AEC application engineers and our Planly specialist. So you are in good hands. For those of you who have attended our webinars before, you'll know that Ahmed is quite comical and serious at the same time, which is great. I think it's an awesome combo. So while Ahmed goes through his webinar, please also feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat, which we will definitely cover at the end. I will also be putting the link to our Planly information directing to our website in the chat as well for you to also go through. So please enjoy. Like I say, feel free to pop questions in. We will definitely be covering them at the end. And once again, over to you, Ahmed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Appreciate that. This is how I look on a good day, obviously with a little bit of Photoshop edit there. I'm Ahmed Kasim. Thank you everybody for joining. And so today we'll be looking into part 2 of why most BEPs fail, which is lack of a specifically defined scope of BIM implementation work. Pretty self-explanatory. So our agenda for today: why define a BIM contract? And then we will show how BIM scopes are defined today. And then we'll go over 5 steps to simplify your BIM scoping. And then finally, how we can deliver a clearer BIM contract for your teams in order to get better results. So firstly, why should we define a BIM contract? Well, is this the BIM you asked for? Well, fairly okay. There's walls and floors and ceilings and, some beams in there. What about this? There's some glazing in there and there's some sort of layering on the floors, slightly more defined structural framing in there. And how about this? Much more detailing and finishes. So which is the BIM you need? There are 3 different levels of BIM, different amounts of detail, elements, data, etc. And the problem is that we have a set of our stakeholders over there on a project, and they all have their own opinion of what BIM should be at certain points in time. So every one of those people over there will have a different goal and want to produce something that is more valuable to their company. And sometimes we get owners going, what is this? I didn't pay for this. This isn't what I had expected. All right. So the first thing you want to ask yourself is, how do we know what the model that we are creating will be used for? And there are many examples of what our models can be used for, ranging from design to simulation, AR, VR, facilities management. And let's just go over 5 examples just to get a better understanding. So the first example is design reviews. We're seeing a lot more of VR and AR being used, and now we are asked many times to model for this. Number 2 is for quantities or cost estimation. So making sure we are certain of the elements we need before we go and try and take off quantities is important, because missing quantities can be a huge problem. One of the most common uses of BIM is coordination. It's very important to do coordination for constructibility issues or clash detection in the model before they get on site. So you want to get it done virtually before we get on site, and there are massive problems over there and a whole lot of costing that has to go on there, additional costing. And then phase planning. We have phase planning where we want to understand sequencing or 4D simulations, being able to see something virtually, construct over time, and making sure we have the items we want to sequence and phase. And then there's as-built handover models. If we like to visualize the data and, with this whole Internet of Things, we need to plan out information that has already been constructed. So we understand why we have to define a BIM contract. And now let's look at how BIM scopes are defined today. Many people have heard of the benefits of BIM and they have a BIM guy, so they're like, yes, let's do BIM. But some people, on the other hand, they're also not aware of it or don't know about it. And so it's not a requirement on their projects. Some have unrealistic expectations for BIM as well. We want LOD 500 plus Kobe, wanting everything for a BIM model. And wanting everything for a BIM model may also not be effective. This brings me back to a video I saw lately of somebody trying to fit a TV into a car, one of those 65-inch TVs. So let us have clear BIM goals. Make it SMART for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound BIM goals. So let's keep that in mind. However, some poll results point out that 1.8% of projects actually requested BIM goals. So this is very sad. And surely there's a better way with some standards. So they have been, at the start of 2004, being able to solve the challenge to plan 3D geometry. The first BIM contract was formed in 2008 in the USA. We had the LODs being developed in 2011. The I in BIM for information started to become important. The PAS 1192 in 2014 with laser scanning and accuracy becoming important with LOI. All of these definitions and terms becoming important. And now we have even more definition and refinement in the ISO standards and some really powerful documentation becoming available for us. But the problem is the result of lots of standards, and in that confusing time over the years, we sometimes still see these types of requests where deliverables are required as all 3D coordination models to be Revit BIM LOD 400 and all 3D coordinations models to be LOD 500 plus Kobe. And that sometimes is too much. And there's so many questions behind all that. And unfortunately, as a result, you end up with either too much BIM, you're either modeling too much, there's overlapping information, or you end up with too little, where the contract didn't define enough BIM, or nobody knew who was responsible for certain items, and we end up with missing information. So why is this such a challenge? Sometimes we just need to start off with some basic questions. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. These are some of the questions that we need to answer across many parties involved in order to get there. And it's a complex challenge as we need to define different aspects of the contract. So here are just 6 different aspects we can talk about, like which elements do we need, how much geometry, how reliable do we need it to be, the level of accuracy, what is the purpose, what information is needed. These are just 6 different categories, and each of them have a level of depth to them as well. So have a look at that. So here are 5 steps to simplify your BIM scopes. The first thing you should do is define the why. Why are we doing BIM on this project? So basically, what are the BIM users? Do we need estimates? Do we want to do coordination? We need to know what constructability issues we're going to have before we go on site. That will help us answer the what. What scope is required to do the structural estimate? Is it wall foundations? Is it structural steel? How much of depth do we get into with regards to these specific elements? Do we need reinforcement? And that leads us to the how much, the level of geometry, the levels of information. Here, we can see for structural estimation, we might just need a set of model lines or some basic components. But once we get into MEP coordination, we might need a more detailed bit of information. So 3D geometry, etc. And defining when is also important, because you don't need to spend all that time upfront, and you also might not have that information upfront. So aligning those expectations will prevent a lot of headache. And too much, too soon, even though it might have some use later, can become tedious, as it might cause a lot of rework later. So understanding this progression is important, and making sure you model it once and not multiple times at multiple levels of geometry. So within each element, there's the information requirement. So the level of information, or the level of geometry, or level of documentation, and making sure this is a more visual and more intuitive table, or table-like format. It's very intuitive and very easy to understand across the board. One of the most important things is defining who is responsible. Here we are defining what the architects are responsible for, designing the stairs, and then the structural teams to model the structural components and taking over that model for coordination purposes. And if it's concrete or steel or precast, is there a requirement for space for things to be installed, etc.? One of the most, or these are the 5 simple steps basically that you will need to build a scope. If you can define the why, who, what, and how much, you are off to a start of, I would say, a lot of great and successful projects. Make this visual, and making it visual is always a plus, as you have a lot of people and a lot more people understanding what LOD 350 or 400 is, and you can have more educated discussions instead of having to educate others. So less time answering questions and more time doing the work. And we talked about why we define a contract. We talked about the 5 steps for BIM scopes. How about making it clearer in the delivery? So we want the whole team to have access, and we want everyone to have a say. We need all the individuals to be part of the process and to give feedback. This is a much more powerful way of doing things than just sending a PDF by email. And there is a lot more information that we can provide for our teams as well. If there is a certain workflow, a deliverable process that they need to know, you can create a clear flowchart of how to. When you want the models to be received, so that you can run coordination, or when someone needs to share a model, or needs to share a model back to each other, it educates and gives everyone a sense of direction. So it's nice to have an entire document set out, but you also don't want to send the whole scope to everyone on the project. And it also helps that you can send a filtered scope. Like here, we can send a filtered scope to say just the plumbing scope. And instead of sending the entire scope, we have just 3 pages for just the plumbing scope. This alleviates the fear that some people have when they see the entire scope and all the overlapping scope. So this makes it easier for everybody to understand and makes them more likely to get engaged. And if you're filtering by responsibility, you also might want to filter by handover, or maybe an information delivery milestone. So being able to say, this team with this responsibility, it's a handover scope, and being able to filter it down and present it to them, just the elements that they required, along with the information requirements that they need to add to. And as we go along, being able to archive and also being able to have a live environment for teams to work and collaborate as things change on a project. So there's a lot of power for it being online. So in conclusion, to contract for the right BIM at the right time, you need to first know what you're going to do BIM for. What is the purpose? Involve all teams in the scoping process, follow the 5 steps, and answer those 5 basic questions. And most of all, and most important, keep it simple. And you will be well on your way to making your BEPs awesome. So here are some resources to help your BIM team grow. So follow this link to get more information on Planoly. The link is in the chat. And book your masterclass accreditation sessions with us now. So we will keep you posted for our next webinar, which will be part 3 of why most BIM execution plans fail. Very exciting. Before we end off, any questions?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ahmed. Okay, I see we have some questions come through here. The first one, says, cool that it's online and all, but we still need a hard copy of BEP to refer to on site. It's a good question.
Yes. All right. So there's a little icon in Planoly. Once you're done creating, or well, not once you're done, as you're creating your BEP, there's a little icon to click print to PDF. So that's very cool.
Okay,
and
awesome.
and you can send your scope to CSV, yeah, to an Excel CSV file.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man. Okay, then another question here. Does Planoly offer us the ability to conform with ISO standards?
Yes, we are able to now create our BEPs using the ISO templates, which are all available on Planoly. Planoly has a list of templates that you can use to create your BEP. The ISO standards are part of that list.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks. Okay, it looks like there's just one more question. Okay, creating, sort of in line with what you just said there, creating a BEP takes a long time. How would you advise going about creating a collaborative BEP?
Okay, so yes, it takes a lot of time to create the BEP. My advice, and the way Planoly wants us or is directing us to create BEPs, is doing bite-sized version of the BEP. A BEP can take months to create a fully refined BIM execution plan. So the reason why it's online is we can do bite-sized approach. So the first part of the BEP, who is responsible? What are we going to be including in the BEP? What is the users? And then stop there, all right? Share it with the rest of the team, get information and feedback. And once we're happy with it, we can publish it. Then we move over onto the next step. Do that, have a collaborative meeting on it. And as we know, Planoly also has the cool option of the commenting. So like on our social media platforms, you can comment, you know, at Nick, are you happy with this a part of the BEP? Can we share it at the moment? How or what is it that needs to be changed? So in a collaborative environment, makes it easier for us to do the BIM execution plan. Also, let's try doing our BIM execution plans in bite-sized version. We don't have to do the whole thing one time. People are going to be waiting a year for the BIM execution plan to come out. Bite-sized portions and better collaboration and a quicker turnaround for our BIM execution plan. And it's an ongoing thing, the BIM execution plan. Therefore, the collaborative approach where we can agree to certain items as we go along.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. It makes sense what you just said there, and you know, bite-sized information, one day at a time. I think it works very well.
Of course.
Awesome. Thanks, Ahmed. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in. Yeah, but thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. And Ahmed, thank you once again. I always enjoy doing webinars with you. They are both entertaining and very informative. Okay, and to everybody who did join us today, thanks. I will be sending you the recording of this webinar as well to share with your colleagues as soon as I have it available, as well as the link once again to our website. And yeah, once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to visit our website, pop questions in there, or email myself or Ahmed and get in touch with us at Moderna. Once again, thanks again, everyone, and have a fantastic weekend. Thanks a million, Ahmed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Keep well, stay safe, and enjoy.